Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Real Point of View. My name is Greg Morgan. I am the real movie guy on the internet, and I'm joined with two other internet critics, uh, the funny and sometimes hilarious Mr. Stephen C. He's a guy who doesn't pick a bad movie. And then also joining us is Karen D., the movie maven herself. Welcome
Allegedly.
to the show, you guys. We've been talking about some crazy stuff, obviously, ladies and gentlemen, on and off, prior to us getting on the show here. So we get a little wacky before we get started. But, it's funny the different trends that are going on in Hollywood. And we wanted to talk about a trend that seems to be much more prevalent of late, and that is star power. Do we go to the movies and watch films because of who's in it? Or do we go because we're interested in what it's about? In the past, many moons ago, Hollywood, when it first got started, had a lot of stars that were part of studios. And so they based the movies around these great stars that they had in their quote unquote collective. So nowadays, when we go to the movies or see movies, stream movies, however we're viewing film, is it the star power that really draws us to the film? Is it the subject matter? I'm thinking, it's a little bit of both, but it seems to me that the star power is fading. So what do you guys think about that? Is star power fading? Are there still the great stars out there that everybody's flocking to see? Or has that kind of gone to more content as opposed to who is in the film?
Who first, me or you, Steve?
I would say, I guess I'll go first then. I would say it really does depend on the actor to what you're going to get. The Greg, one of the guy you're going to talk about today, The Rock. The Rock is a guy that right now is driving people to theaters. People are wanting to go see him act in a movie. They love the characters that he portrays. There's little smaller films that we've talked about on here in the past. To mention one is Faster, where you really see a different style of acting than he normally does. Rampage that recently come out. Jumanji is more of his comedic side, which is what he's used to. And then you've got his character in the Fast and the Furious movies that's his more action, kind of slightly 80s one-liner kind of guys. And he really embodies a bunch of different styles in what he's doing right now, and people are enjoying going to see The Rock as much as the movies that he's
in. So I guess to me, star power is very much different than it was during what people refer to as the golden age of Hollywood. I think star power has become more fragmented, and that having a specific quote unquote star in a movie may or may not drive people to the theaters. In the golden age of Hollywood, having somebody like, say, Cary Grant star in a movie, that pretty much guaranteed that the box office for that particular production. And I mean, for the most part, not every single time, but for the most part, though Clark Gable, Elizabeth Taylor, people like that would guarantee box office. And I don't see that these days. I think it doesn't matter who's in the movie. What guarantees the box office is just this much more sort of ephemeral combination of things. Maybe a star along with like this really amazing story, or maybe really something topical, or maybe something really controversial, or a mix of all of those things. And it's very, I mean, I think Hollywood or, movie studios are finding it really hard to sort of come up. They love formulas. They don't really have a formula for guaranteeing the box office or like a huge return on investment. So, like Black Panther, that was huge, but I don't think people went to see Black Panther necessarily because Chadwick Boseman was in Black Panther. He was in Black Panther, and his star power warranted him being in Black Panther. But what drove people to the theaters was the story. And of course, you're going to have somebody like Chadwick Boseman embodying that character, and that fit in. That was a puzzle piece that fit into that. But like with The Rock, there are a number of movies that he's been in that have flopped. I can think of plenty of quote unquote stars, Denzel Washington or George Clooney or Julia Roberts, but then flops, total freaking flops, as well as really popular movies. And I think it's because I think it's a lot harder than it used to be to just sort of catch. It's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle to guarantee box office.
It's funny. I look back at two things. One, the word fan. When we were going to the box office or going to the theaters to see a lot of films, we went as fans. That's why star power was a big deal. If you're a fan of, i.e., Denzel Washington, well, you're going to pretty much go to see his movies. If you're a fan of Robert Duvall, you're going to go see his movies. But the fan power has tailed off. Is it because possibly they've gotten older and so the subject matter that was relevant to our going in the past has changed so much that it's not as much of a draw anymore, even though they're in the film? Another thing is looking at a movie like Ava DuVernay's film, Selma. Now, that was a subject matter that a lot of people had interest in, despite who was in the film. I don't think a lot of people were overly aware of David Oyelowo, who ended up playing Martin Luther King in the film.
Well, for one, he was British.
They weren't going because of that situation. They were going because of the subject matter, the story, to see how that story was going to be elevated because of how this director and the screenwriter and the total script itself was able to be portrayed and facilitated on film for us to see. Was it going to give us what we were looking for as fans, or not fans, but as viewers? So in that case, star power wasn't as huge a deal because the story itself, with good acting too, like you said, Karen, a combination of, but it wasn't what drew us there. What drew us there was pretty much the word Selma, going back in time, seeing a historical event being portrayed on film, and to see if it was going to be true to the fold of what history says, and or also what that inside story was to help us get into the characters and try to understand the people that were being portrayed in this quote-unquote biopic. So let's look at, I know John Wick, for you, Steve, for example, with Keanu Reeves. Now, when I was younger, Keanu Reeves came out of nowhere. And then the next thing I know, he was in a lot of films, and I was starting to develop a little bit of a fan essence for that. And then it seemed to be, as Karen said, a lot of films that were flops, films that didn't matter very much. And then The Matrix came out, and people got into that. But were they really into Keanu Reeves so much, or were they really into the sci-fi essence of the cinematography and the special effects that were being facilitated in that film, where anybody could have been plugged into that movie? Now, for me, I think I have a resurgence of being a quote-unquote fan of Keanu Reeves because of John Wick. So what is it? Is it a little bit of both? How is it trending now? How are we looking at films now anymore? Because there's a lot of films coming out and being produced a lot faster anymore. And yet now we have this great library of films to see, but how do we decide which ones to see? And as Karen might say, that's not wasting our time.
I feel Keanu Reeves did kind of come out of nowhere. He was in a movie back in 1985, and a lot of people really wouldn't, sit there and think of him being that, because Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is his biggest movie that he's been in, early in his career, came out in '89. So he made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. He was in 8 movies before that movie even came out. So he was just kind of him, it seemed like, getting a feel. And then Bill and Ted came out. And the problem with that is he kind of almost to the public got stereotyped. Mm-hmm. That's who he is. That's who Keanu Reeves is. And then he gets cast in Point Break. and then that kind of breaks him back out. And honestly, Keanu Reeves wasn't the guy in Point Break. It was
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze that really drew attention. But in going through later movies, you can see where Point Break really helped him break his niche a little bit. Now, it didn't help that the exact same year another Bill and Ted movie came out, and so he kind of gets, he kind of gets roped in again. But then he tries to go a little bit further. He's in Bram Stoker's Dracula. 2 years later, he gets in the movie Speed, which Speed was a movie that people were interested in. I would say more so for the aspect of the type of movie it was, but it was nominated in awards. Sandra Bullock, Dennis Hopper, and Keanu Reeves, and it gave him some recognition that he started kind of branching out more and more. He gets in a movie with Al Pacino years later called The Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
Which
I really like that movie.
It's an amazing movie. And is very well done, and it lets him show a different, he continues to try and reinvent himself. He continues to try to kind of push the bar just a little bit. It's like you kind of think you know where I am, but I'm going to go try this out, and I'm going to do a good job at it. And if you go watch Keanu Reeves movies, you'll be impressed to the degree when he gets in more serious roles of how good his acting actually is.
I have a movie that didn't get a lot of publicity and a lot of press, but I thought was a pretty decent film for the most part. And even though Keanu Reeves' part in it wasn't huge, it was poignant. And I think that was the gift. I thought he did a really good job in there. It's hard to be such a jerk on film and be very convincing. And he was very convincing in that small role. And then, major roles out there, as I aforementioned, The Matrix was a big deal for him, especially, and started to build a little following for him. But that's the thing. For him, if indeed star power was the true essence for him, it was one of those things that was fleeting because it kept falling off and coming back, falling off. It wasn't sustained.
One thing about Keanu Reeves is when you go watch Keanu Reeves in a movie, and you look at him on the screen or you're watching him on DVD in your home, you can't see anybody else portraying that character. It's weird to try to go through and say somebody other than Keanu Reeves could have been that guy, because he does, in my opinion, such a good job of adapting himself into what his character should be doing, not necessarily going beyond himself to try to portray that character, but he just does such a good job. Street Kings, Scanner Darkly, 47 Ronin, and that we've talked about on here, and now John Wick. With the first John Wick movie, nobody knew what to expect, but it actually did get attention because people like me saw Keanu Reeves up there, and the trailer and the publicity did an amazing job, but it's just like we could grip onto Keanu Reeves. We have all these other actors that are really great actors, Ian McShane being in it, and William Dafoe in the first movie. In the second movie, having Lawrence Fishburne, make an appearance in the movie along with Ian McShane, Lance Reddick being in it. We had people to adapt to, but you went to see it because it was action. It was kind of one of the movies that was standalone during that month that it came out. So it was just like, this is the most interesting movie to see, and it was Keanu Reeves. And I feel like it's kind of resurged his career. He's done a whole bunch of movies, and then now he's got this one coming out this year called Destination Wedding, in which he's in it with Winona Ryder. And if you look back at Keanu's
and they got married.
Right. And they got married. So, which makes this even better.
Right.
But you can see where he's kind of branching out a little bit more. Once again, he's pushing that bar again of going, I'm going to do this movie, and, it's something different that everybody's going to want to see. Plus, when you see Destination Wedding, maybe this is a little bit of a resurgence for Winona Ryder. And her career has kind of dropped off. So it may be helping.
I think Winona Ryder had a big boost because of Stranger Things on television.
That too.
But also too, I think Keanu Reeves has been, in my opinion, what's the word I'm looking for? Associated with action films of late. Probably, if for no other reason, The Matrix and now John Wick. Now, Karen, you said you had a star out there that you wanted to kind of focus on. So who is that, and how do you feel it's working or not working for them?
Well, the person that I wanted to focus on is Viola Davis, and I guess before I get to her specifically, I just want to say that to me, one of the key things, I think what I see as attitudes towards star power, which are different than they were in the golden age of Hollywood, reflect just our ability to focus on things as a society, and that ability has really tanked, in my opinion. I mean, we just, it's very fragmented, and I think just like the movie going public is fragmented because you can go to the movies, or you can stream something, or you can record something, or you can you can DVD it, or there are 25 different ways to catch media. And it's really hard to focus on the one or for any one of them to take precedence over any other one for any length of time. Whereas back in the 40s, TV was definitely and also ran, or 50s. I mean, people didn't even have TVs in the 40s. So say in the 50s, TV was, the movie industry was really worried about the advent of the TV, but for the American public, going to the movies was the event. That was date night. TV was something you did until you could get to date night. That's not the way it is anymore. Date night could be anywhere. And I think our attitude towards stars, you can focus on the star, but then there's this other shiny new thing that you can focus on, a shiny new story, or a shiny new special effects, or whatever. And that our attention gets very easily diverted. And I think that's reflected in, we don't have this adoration or this just undying loyalty to stars anymore. So like Viola Davis, as far as I'm concerned, she is every bit the star. She embodies star. She has major acting chops. She's a graduate of Juilliard. She is in the rarefied, like triple, there's something called a triple award club, I think. Let me see, what is it called? It's called the Triple Crown of Acting. That's what it is. There are only 17 actresses that have won a Tony, an Oscar, an Emmy. She's one of them. She's one of only like 25 actresses who's been nominated for both Best Supporting and Best Actress. She's one of the very few actresses who has been nominated for a character in a Broadway play, nominated for a Tony, and nominated for an Oscar for playing that same character in the movie, and that would be Fences, where she won the Tony for Fences on Broadway, and then she was nominated for the Academy Award. So, and she's an incredible actress, but you look at her filmography, and it is all over the place. You're as likely to see that woman on Lifetime as you are at the Cineplex. You're as likely to see her on ABC as you are, are in a play. And maybe a lot of this is just her personal sort of approach, but she started out being very diverse. She wasn't one of those people who said, well, I really want to be a film actress, but I'll take the TV work until the best acting part comes along. No, she honed her acting chops wherever she could hone them, be it TV, be it movies, be it plays or whatever. She also is now getting more into production, so behind the camera. And there's over 20 projects that she's produced herself. Some movies that are coming out, a Barbara Jordan biopic, she's the executive producer. She's been the producer on a number of episodes of How to Get Away with Murder, for which she won an Emmy. she, in my opinion, she should have won the Oscar for The Help. I think she was completely robbed, and I hate that the Academy gave it to Meryl Streep for the Iron Maiden, the Iron
Yes.
Lady,
Iron Lady.
which was I love political films, and that thing let me not get off on a tangent on that film. But anyway, she was completely robbed there, so she should have won, but she didn't. But she, why did I? Oh yeah, so she's in The Help, and that was like this ensemble movie, but she was the leader of that ensemble, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that movie was definitely a hit. It did great box office, but I don't know if I think people went to see The Help because of the story of The Help.
Correct.
And not because, oh, I've got to see Viola Davis's next picture. Like if you went to the average person on the street, I'm not even sure if they could tell you what her next picture is coming up. They would have no idea. And maybe they would go to see it because it's a really great story. Like The Help, just, the timing was right and just captured the story. The book was great. And then, so people were interested. And then, it was very well done. So people went to see it. And I think you had a situation similar to, like Chadwick Boseman, where you need someone of her pedigree to be in that movie, but her presence in the movie doesn't necessarily drive people to the theater, and there have been instances where she has been the leader or sort of like the lead actress, like Lila and Eve would be one such film. Don't Back Down would be another such film. Didn't do great box office at all. And those are movies that starred her, didn't matter. It didn't matter enough for people to make that box office just because she was in it. And it has nothing to do with her brilliance as an actor, because she's brilliant. Mm-hmm. I've never seen her put in a poor performance. I saw her in a Lifetime movie called Custody. Mm-hmm. I was like, what is she doing on Lifetime? But it was a serious project, and it was really well done.
Yeah, I saw that. It was pretty good. Now, going back to Golden Days of Hollywood for just a moment, you could see that back in that era, films came out every 3-4 years. So one of the things that was the studios were doing was constant promotion of those particular stars that were in their studio. And so it was a little easier to say why there were fans and magazines that were portraying all these different film stars in it, so that you were in anticipation of. Nowadays, you can put a movie out in a year. And you have such huge budgets for a lot of films, but back in the day, but now you don't have to have such a humongous budget to get your film made. And one example is Spike Lee put his film on Kickstart to get some money, raise some money for a film. And so you can, as an independent filmmaker, make your own films. You're not beholden to the rigors of having to deal with a major studio any longer. And so with films coming out faster, with actors and actresses trying to make sure, i.e., like you said, hone their skills, they're able to get in films that are not so high budgeted, but yet gives them the opportunity to try something different, to get people to see them even more, because now they know that there's other avenues for people to see them in film. So star power is not so much necessary, quote unquote, for some films because of the storyline being so good. But now the stars are trying to get into more projects so that you don't lose sight that they exist. So what's the true answer here anymore? Is it situations, let's say, Denzel Washington in a film would be something I would just always tend to do. I'm a fan. So now that he's getting a little bit older, doing different types of projects, is my fandom still going to be the same? Probably. He's just a really good actor. But there are other actors who, just like their star power is fading, so too is their ability to get into films that they need to get into so that people can keep them in mind. It's a very interesting topic, I think, and it's a very interesting situation anymore, how we've gone over time from, i.e., the golden days of Hollywood, where I'm a big Gregory Peck fan. And, you know, these movies all over time, seeing Gregory Peck in film was, yes, they've done a lot of films, but look how many decades of work they've done. Whereas a new actor on the playing field can get as many movies out there in 10 years. Are they quality, though? Is it any good? Is the story any good? Is the story truly helping their career in this movie that they're in? Now, we were talking about epics. We were talking about series as far as films are concerned. Films like Lord of the Rings, films like the Marvel Universe, the DC Universe, if you're talking about films that were comic book based. We're talking about Game of Thrones, which is novel based. You know, we have those abilities with these big films, short films out there. Is that enough to sustain or obtain or develop any star power?
I don't know. I mean, there's no definite, there's no silver bullet glide path to that. And that, to me, that's part of what Hollywood keeps struggling with, and not just Hollywood, but the indies as well, because everyone's looking for like the hit, the thing that, you know, puts them on the map for all time. And I think there's an inverse relationship between looking for the magic things that will make your movie great and actually making a great movie. I think the movies that are great, they're great because people are so focused on the telling of the story, the development of the character, the things that actually make a movie interesting and telling a compelling story. That's what they're focused on. It's not like, how can I make this a hit? Or, you know, if I throw in this, will that bring people to the theater? Or if I say that, will that give me a good review? They're not thinking like that, but investors are thinking like that. And investors put pressure on movie producers to skew a story a certain way or to cast it a certain way. I mean, it's not like the best person always gets cast. No, sometimes the worst person gets cast. So it really, you know, so you don't have, people keep looking for the formula. How do you get a great movie? And there is many different ways to get a great movie, as there are different filmmakers, as there are different actors and different technical people behind the scenes, and they can also make or break your movie. You know, if you have a great movie, but if your cinematographer sucks, you could pretty much have a sucky movie. And you've got the difference between, you know, movies are director driven. So you could be a fabulous actor or actress, but if you got a crappy director, you're probably going to have a crappy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Just doesn't matter. You could be putting 110% on those reels every single day, and it won't make any difference because the director doesn't know what he or she is doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got about 8 to 9 minutes left, you guys. So let's kind of bring this home if we can. So, in your opinion, do we, as consumers, do we rely so much on the fan base of the actor, or do we rely more on the storyline and the development of the film? For me, it's a little bit of both, but I still think if the movie is good, even if the actor is not great, they can be great in a good movie. But at the same time, I'm still a fan of some really, really good actors out there. So I'm kind of conflicted.
There are some movies out there that are bad movies, but there's little highlights you get when watching the movie that makes you enjoy a bad movie. I'm going to give it an example. I'm a video game guy. Just real quick, there's a movie called Street Fighter. It's based on the arcade video game. It stars Jean-Claude Van Damme, has a bunch of other people, but Ralph Julia's in it. He is amazing. Watching him on screen portray the character of M. Bison is phenomenal because he didn't go in it like you can tell everyone else went in it. Everyone else went, this is a movie, it's a video game movie. Video game movies don't work. Cartoon movies don't work. All of this stuff. And Ralph Julia, because his son loved the video game. So he went in going, I'm going to make this amazing. I'm going to do a great job. And if you go watch the movie, I'm not suggesting anybody goes to watch this movie. But if you want just a good laugh, just like Greg had right there, watch him in this movie and you will laugh just like that when you see him, because you'll just be like, this guy is giving 120% and everyone else is here.
Right. He didn't get the memo. It's like he actually took it seriously.
He didn't care about the memo. He said, this movie is going to be in a $2.50 bin 10 years from now because of me. All $2.50 is because of me. When that movie came out and when people paid however much money they paid for it, Ralph Julia was the reason they paid any dollar whatsoever for that movie. That movie, wherever you find it, worth a rent, worth a look, worth a checkout just for him. And a phenomenal actor at that.
But that's ironic because that's star power, right? This guy is going out there giving his 100%. I think if you have a particular person that you're a fan of and you think they're giving 110% or more, yeah, that's great. But again, we really want to see a quality film. We're tired. We've had a hard week. We want to see something that's going to perk us up or make us happy or even make us sad, but in a positive way. Just a few people whose star power I thought was on the rise and yet has kind of flatlined. Will Smith. I thought he was really on the rise, and he's kind of flatlined in some of the more recent films.
Because he doesn't have to work anymore.
And that's the sad part. That's my point. If he was working hard and we got a little bit better out of him, maybe we like the films more.
I thought Blight was a good movie. I thought his portrayal was actually pretty good.
Wait, what movie was this?
It's called Blight. It's a Netflix movie.
It's a Netflix movie. It's a sci-fi film. It's pretty decent. But my point is, like major films, if you don't have Netflix and you didn't know about it, you're not seeing it.
That's true.
But at the same time, a person whose star power seems to be there, whether you like him or not, he's just out there. And his Mission Impossible movies are really pretty good. And I
think so. I plan on going to see the latest Mission Impossible movie.
I like Tom Cruise in film, and it's just
I do too.
I don't care about his politics, but I do like him as an actor, and I think he's a pretty decent actor. But I'm going to put this little jab in there. We talked about, is there a movie out there that you thought someone else should have played the part? And that's Tom Cruise. I think Hugh Jackman would have done a better job in the Child's movie, the Jack Reacher movies, because he embodies what the actual book says aesthetically.
Minus the blonde hair.
And he's a good actor. And he's a good actor. So I think he would have pulled it off. But still, Tom Cruise still did a good job, so I can't take that away from him. But I just think he brought the franchise, quote unquote, so he's going to be Jack Reacher no matter what. But at the same time, fortunately, he's a pretty good actor, so it didn't hurt anything.
Well, for me, I would say star power is less of a draw. I'm a real fan of Denzel Washington. But I'm not going to go see everything that Denzel Washington, just because, you have to do more than slap the name Denzel Washington on a movie to make me go see the movie or go through the effort to get to the theater to see a movie. Like, he was in Roman J. Israel Esquire. And I could not come up with the compelling reason to go see that movie, even though he, apparently did well enough to be nominated for an Academy Award. The story didn't, it sounded like this really based on a true story, or based on, things that happened in real life.
It was based on something.
Based on something, but I'm like, okay, but why do I need to go find out about this guy? I just don't know why. And I didn't feel like I needed to go, even though I'm a real fan of Denzel Washington. I really like him, but I wasn't going to go see that.
And ironically, my wife saw the film. I haven't seen it, but she saw it. She said it actually was pretty good. So you never know.
Yeah, you never know. I'm just saying that the way it was presented, it didn't say to me, wow, this looks like a really interesting, like it has to be a really interesting story that's really well told and something interesting about the characters. And what I like to say is that I want to feel like I'm watching a movie about somebody that I wouldn't mind having lunch with. If I can't have a meal with you, I'm not going to watch your life story on a movie. I'm just not.
So Miss Jane Pittman is not you're having lunch with her, though?
No, of course I would have lunch with Cicely Tyson. I'm not crazy.
I'm not crazy.
She would read the phone book and I would have lunch with her.
I know. That's true fan power right there. That's
right. That is true fan power.
Yes, ma'am. So any last words, guys? Anything else that we can put toward this subject before we get out of here?
I will say this. I have a buddy of mine at work. His name is Steve Patton. If you stick dinosaurs and pirates in a movie, he's going to see it. So for Jurassic Park, Pirates of the Caribbean, there's one guy right there. He's like, oh, all the movies are great. Johnny Depp does a great job. I thought Chris Pratt was hilarious, but I was not there to see anybody but dinosaurs and pirates. For those, so, it is oftentimes the subject matter. Marvel has literally gotten away with good casting to go along with a great story. And though they're retelling a story, they are telling all the stories in their own way. So,
yeah,
that's all I got.
And they're doing better than DC.
Yeah, that other brand.
In terms of telling the story.
Yeah, that other brand that's only got one good movie so far.
That's right.
Well, we'll see what Aquaman is. Is that the one you're talking about?
No, Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman. Of course, Wonder Woman. So Aquaman's coming out, so we'll see if that has any merit. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thanks again for joining us here at A Real Point of View. Check us out on our YouTube channel, and we're going to come back again